Hello, and welcome to the Coach Right podcast, where we explore how to turn coaching expertise into published pages. I'm your host, Helen ONeill, portfolio career specialist, accredited future of work coach, author and creator of Coach Right 90, the writing programme specifically designed for coaches. You can get the episode show notes and your free guide to publishing options at coachright.co.uk. It's time for the next chapter. Welcome to the Coach Right podcast. I'm your host, Helen ONeill, recording this on Friday the 12th of December 2025. And I am delighted to say that today we have reached a milestone. This is episode 10. Thank you for those of you that have been with me since the beginning, those that discovered us a little way through and then went back to listen to the early episodes. This started as a way to bring my love of coaching and my love of books together, to dispel some myths around what it takes to write and publish a book in today's crowded marketplace, and to encourage more coaches to get their words into the world. And I am so grateful to all the wonderful coaches who have generously shared their experiences. I know I've learned a lot, and from listener feedback, I know I'm not alone. I'll be back on New Year's Eve with a mini-sode, but today I bring you the last interview of 2025, and it's a great one. With a background in management consultancy, Helen Hopper was well placed to go behind the scenes on the dynamics of board relationships. What started as a campfire conversation became a 4-year partnership to research, write and publish the art and psychology of board relationships. In our conversation, we cover co-writing and how sometimes the simple solutions are the most effective, and how we can get out of our own way. It would be remiss of me not to share a few reflections on the year, and what a year it's been. I've coached some truly fantastic people. Their stories are not mine to share, but needless to say, there have been transformations, there have been reframes, there have been goals that have been set and achieved, pivots have been put into place, and portfolio careers have been launched. All of it has been an absolute honour. The world of work is changing, and the coaching industry isn't immune. How we serve has never been more important, and this year I've made some important decisions about my practice. I've set out my niche to support those who seek diversification in their career and in their income. Because when you operate in a portfolio career, it's not always that easy to have development conversations, talk about your business structure or the boundary or relational challenges that are unique to this way of working. And at the same time, this way of working is becoming increasingly more popular for individuals and for organisations. I set out my stall as a human coach. As a future of work coach, I have and will continue to embrace AI for process, automation and administration. It will not, however, enter the coaching space in any form. And I set out my standards. I know a lot of us are in a constant battle with overwhelm, and I refuse to be a coach that plays on that. You will get no artificial urgency from me, no pretend scarcity, no jazz hands sales tricks, or a copy and paste AI content with lots of emojis. The partnerships I build with my clients are genuine, and they work because there's honesty baked into the foundation. My latest book, People Who Pivot, was published this May. It's the book I wish I'd had when I was making a career change of my own, and has been incredibly well received. So many of the coaches I speak to who aspire to write a book have a similar purpose in mind. Using the written word to leave the ladder down for the next person going through what you've experienced is an incredibly powerful thing to do. Coach Right 90 was created to help shape that thinking. I'd put written content at the core of my practice. I was amazed by how many of them said they wanted to do it too, but they didn't know where to start. It's funny, writing a book is often something people say they really want to do, but just not right now. And when you say to someone that they can write a book in 90 days, they don't quite believe you until they do it, and then they know. The programme has been a delight to put together and run in 2025, and I'm looking forward to the next round in January. In the spirit of meeting people where they are and giving them what they need, I'll be sharing a couple of new ways to support coaches at different stages of their writing journey over the next few episodes. But in the meantime, if Coach Right 90 is for you, the links are in the show notes. And I wouldn't be much of a writing coach if my own book wasn't progressing. So fortunately, it is. The Resilience book is very nearly drafted. I'm about 60,000 words in with one more section to finish. It's the final push, and I am confident that it will be done this side of Christmas. So much has gone into this book, and it has changed me. Workshops have spun out of it, and it's informed the way I work with my clients. I am really looking forward to bringing it to you next year. I'm also looking forward to facilitating a series of sessions for the EMCC UK for the aspiring writers out there. There is a series which launches on the 13th of February, which you are eligible to join if you are a member, and I would love to see you there. Again, I'll pop the links in the show notes, or you can go to the events page on EMCC UK's website. Over the next few weeks, I'm sure lots of us are going to be reflecting on the year that's passed and making plans for the year to come. As well as the goals and the plans, I like to set an intention for the year to come with a word of the year. Next year, my word is simplicity, focusing on what's important and enjoying the process. I'd love to hear from you if you have a word of the year. And the run up to the festive season is always full of lots of extra activities. So a quick reminder that taking time to rest and refuel is just as important. If you're someone that finds themselves dashing from one task to the next, try adding rest to your to-do list so it becomes an active task rather than a passive one. It's something that works for me. And remember, rest can be going for a walk, it can be spending time with someone who energizes you, it could be reading a book, or simply sitting with your own thoughts. It doesn't have to be crashing on the sofa. If you're planning a creative focus in 2026, I highly recommend rest in the form of filling the creative well. Go somewhere different and let the ideas in, and then have a quick read of this week's blog, which is all about the reasons why writing a book next year is a brilliant goal to focus on. And a quick note before we move on to the episode for today, friend of the show Robbie Swale, who we met in episode 5, has recently published a new book. It's called The Power to Choose, Finding Calm and Connection in a Complex World. Once again, thank you from me to everyone who's been a guest on this year's show, those of you who have listened, and particularly those of you who have left a review. They really are very important and don't take very long to do. Anyway, that's enough from me. It's time for the next chapter. Welcome to the Coach Right podcast. My guest today is Helen Hopper. Helen is co-founder and partner of leadership consulting firm H3, where she specialises in developing boards and senior teams. She's an accredited master coach and the author of The Art and Psychology of Board Relationships, The Secret Life of Boards. Welcome to the show, Helen.
Thank you, Helen. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so excited to have you here. So let's start by telling us a bit more about you and your practice.
Okay, well, I'm a coach. As you said, I co-founded. We call it H Cubed actually, but H3 is how it looks on the page. So a lot of people call it that. About 15 years ago, and we specialise in leadership development, and that's a whole range of things from individual and team coaching to leadership program facilitation and organisational consulting. But the core of what I do is working with individuals and teams as a coach.
Fantastic. And tell us more about your path to publication.
Well, it started in an unusual place. So probably maybe a decade ago now, I went on something called a powwow with an organisation called Leaders Quest, and they are another leadership organisation development outfit. And they get leaders from different sectors and different countries, different parts of the world together. And I went on a powwow with 100 people in Rajasthan. Wow. And we were looking at compassion in global leadership. And we'd started out in Mumbai looking at a lot of social action projects and how large organisations were interacting with those and solving social problems or trying to. And then we moved to Rajasthan, literally sitting around a campfire and talking to other people. There were people from large corporates, from government, from social enterprises, from charities, from all over the world. And I happened to get talking to Joy Harcup, who is my co-author, and she said, I'm thinking of writing a book. And I'm quite impulsive. And she said, I'm looking for a co-author. And she told me a little bit about what she had in mind and asked me if I wanted to. And I just said yes. So that was, I kind of stumbled in. It was by chance. But the moment was right. I'd kind of thought about it. And Joy and I liked the idea Joy had, which was about writing a book for people on boards and people that aspire to be on boards from a practical and also psychological point of view, because it's such a closed world and hard to get into that world. And it seems, almost like a magic realm of elite people that do something very special. And we were just really interested in demystifying that and also sharing a bit of the knowledge and experience of people who'd been down that path and were board members.
Fantastic. I love the idea of you all kind of sitting around the campfire and then
we literally were. Yeah.
What a wonderful image. So you've sat down at this powwow and you've both decided that yes, you're going to co-author this book, and there's a gem of an idea. How did it become sort of words on the page?
For us, it was a fairly long process. And I know that yours is from seeing what you say about your writing process. I think you've got something going that's a lot more efficient. But we fleshed out the idea. We and took some time to do that. What were we writing? What were the key messages? What was the gap in the market? Who was the audience? And a bit of a structure for it that changed, but an initial starting point for the structure. Yeah, exactly. And then we took that. It's basically a proposal to some publishers. Mm-hmm. So we decided we would like to have it published. And we spoke to a number of different publishers, which is surprisingly easy to do, actually. We just sent them the proposal, and some have specific formats that they want a proposal in. Others, you create your own. So we probably had 3 or 4 conversations with different publishers about what they wanted, what we wanted, what was on offer, basically. And then we chose Routledge, and they commissioned the book. And then we thought it would take about 18 months. It took about 4 years.
Wow.
And obviously we weren't writing all the time. But our book was, in retrospect, neither of us had ever written a book before, Joy or I. So we were doing something for the first time. And we chose quite a difficult approach and format. And we didn't realise this till we were halfway through. So the first 18 months probably were original research. Yeah. So we interviewed about 50 board members from everything from huge corporates to local sort of community groups, people on boards, non-execs, execs, trustees, in some depth, and then did analysis we recorded all of that, and then did analysis, pulled out themes, and quotes as well. So we did a fair amount of work to really look for the interesting stories and the phrases that really evoke something. So that was a fairly long path. If you're going to do original research, it certainly, I think, takes a lot more time. It's really interesting as well, but it's a lot more work. And then we then wrote between us. So we wrote a chapter, we sort of alternated chapters. But one of us would start a chapter, do a very drafty first draft, and then ping it over to the other one who would then work on it, and vice versa. Until we got to a point, we hope, where you can't tell who wrote what. So we developed a joint voice, and we did a fair amount of thinking as we went about tone of voice and style, really. Yeah. And thinking about that in relation to our target audience as well. We had a number of types of people, characters that we thought might read the book. And we ended up talking a lot about someone called Alex, who's a mythical creature who was a man who is aspiring to get on boards, kind of mid-career executive, some interest in this world, but not a lot of knowledge of boards and boardrooms and of psychology as well. So we were often asking each other, because we're in the edit process, it's like, we need more detail here, no, we need less. What would Alex think, right? This person, if they're reading it. So we really tried to sort of keep stepping back and thinking about the reader in quite a specific way. Yeah, so that was our process. So then we spent a couple of years back and forth writing between us. COVID happened. We both lost close family members during the process as well. So, life just goes on around this, and, running businesses and got families, but we just kept plugging away at it. I would not have finished it without Joy, my co-author. So she was absolutely, I love starting things and she loves finishing them properly.
Good combination.
It's a great combination.
So I think it's quite easy to forget, actually. So my first book took 4 years too, because you learn along the way, don't you? And you are squeezing it in around the edges, and you've got a busy life, and you've got a career, and you've got other things to do, and you've obviously got the added extra of the interview process and the research process and the collation process and all of that good stuff. And I love the way that you describe how the two of you work together, because again, you're kind of bouncing off of each other and motivating each other and leaning on each other's strengths and sort of creating this writer persona in between the two of you, which is a really lovely, another lovely image. Apparently that's going to be the theme of today's conversation, I think. So, obviously, Routledge have agreed to publish this book. You guys have done the writing, the research, the editing process. How do we go to then getting that published?
Well, we were really surprised at how hands-off Routledge was as a publisher. So we were really just left to write the whole thing and to go back to them when we'd finished. And as I say, we originally thought it would take 18 months. The other reason it took a long time is so the book covers different aspects of psychology, and we kind of decided to cover the three major schools of psychology rather than deep dive into one. So we were looking at psychodynamics, neuroscience, and cognitive behavioural, and hadn't really clocked that would mean doing desk research, ideas and writers across all three. So that was also very time consuming. But we were left really to write, research, write, and sort of edit for the first cut completely ourselves. And we went back a few times and said it's not ready, and they were, oh, that's fine, didn't seem to mind. So we submitted. They have a list of criteria for their manuscript submissions. So we just converted everything we'd written into that, and we had an eye on that as we went through. The cutting room floor, as I'm sure you'd be the same for your first book, was much fuller than the book itself, and also of wonderful things that we really liked, but we just kind of edited it right down and submitted it to them. We had our own editor a lovely woman called Louise, who's a business writer, do a sort of an edit for flow and for accessibility, and a proofreader called Pete Valenti did a proof for us as well. So we really served up something that was pretty much ready to go. They just did a very light edit, and that was it. They then took the process. So that bit took quite seemed to me quite a long time with Routledge. So I can't remember, but probably 6 months or so, something like that. So we went through the process of galley proofs. They did an edit, galley proofs, cover design, which again, Routledge tend to have a very standard design, and we wanted something a bit more eye-catching. So we ended up doing the artwork for that ourselves. And we've created something that doesn't look like their standard book, and we're really happy with it. So although we had a publisher, it felt like we certainly had control, which was important to us. We did things in the way that we were really proud of and pleased with, and we did most of it ourselves, most of the sort of editing and the process. But clearly what they're very good at is producing books and then getting them out onto all of the networks. Routledge have a good academic reputation, and they also do a lot of they have a lot of coaching publications, and they've got a team particularly for coaches with a sort of academic slant to what they're doing, so a research base or a theory base. So they're a good choice. They were a good choice for us, and they're also, I think it's also a good name. We were keen to get on the exec education reading lists because that's a good market for us. Yeah. So we thought that Routledge would help with that, and I think it has. It's a good name. They haven't actually done. I don't think they've done much active promotion, but I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a really important consideration whenever I'm speaking to people who are thinking about writing their first book. It's important to think, like you said, who is your Alex? And your Alex is this aspirational CEO who may well be studying leadership. Yeah. And so actually having the ability to get on those reading lists is really important.
Yeah. And then I think it's a lovely market as well, because it continues over the years, and the book gets into lots of people's hands, which is the main thing that we wanted. Yeah. I also think the FT are quite good as well from the point of view of getting the book into people's hands. So if you're looking for that kind of airport grab kind of, as you're going through on holiday type book, something that's pretty accessible, so it wouldn't feel like a textbook. I think the FT are really good at creating books for that market and then positioning them.
That's a good tip. Thank you. The other question that springs to mind as I'm thinking about tips is, in my head, there's two of you living in two different places, writing in some sort of synchronous way. What technology or tools did you use to help with the process?
Yeah. We had a shared Dropbox, but I would tend to use SharePoint now because I think it's better for interactive documents. We used, I'm trying to remember the name. We used a tool for embedding references, a tool where you can just sort of cite a book and get the proper reference, and then it creates a reference for the whole book at the end of the document, and it plugs into Word. So we used that, but we were in a way quite low tech about the actual writing process. So both of us are used to using track changes in a Word document. If you're going to exchange it, you can see what the other person's done, and that quickly just turns into a complete nightmare. If you're making a lot of edits on a large document, you just can't see it. We couldn't. So this was a tip that Joy got from someone else that had written a book. We each had our own colours. So Joy, I think Joy had, one of us had dark purple and one of us had dark green. It's quite
You can't
suffragette
have
now, I come
red
to
because
think of
that
it.
feels a bit
You
like...
can't have red.
No.
Angry and wrong. Yeah. So we would write the whole thing in our colour, and then pitch it over the fence, and the other person would pick it up. And if they agreed, if they really loved a bit, then we would do what we call black it out, which is just turn the text to black, and that meant it was agreed. And then if I wanted to add something in as a suggestion, I'd put it in my colour. And if I wanted to talk about something, I'd leave it purple, usually with a comment in it. So we'd end up with these documents kind of colour coded in that way. And that did work really practically for us.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the simplest things, isn't it? When you say, "Oh, we just use different colours," you go, "Yeah, of course you did. Of course, that's obvious." But I would never have thought of doing that.
No, it wasn't where we started, but it certainly worked. The other thing I think is very useful is to use the structure in Word. You can have like a headings and subheadings and chapter headings. If you use that formatting device, then you can end up with a side pane, and you can easily navigate around the whole document very quickly. So that turned out to be invaluable too.
Yeah, good tip. And how has writing the book influenced your practice?
I think what it did, because we went back to the underlying psychology of difficult relationship dynamics in the boardroom. So we went right back into Freud, thinking about psychodynamics and, when is projection happening in the boardroom, or beyond, looking at basic assumptions and how boards can get into sort of fight or flight mode, that kind of thing. So it went right back to the original sources, and that was really good, actually, because it's years since I've connected with any of that kind of stuff. And some of it was new and some of it was moved on. So we also, as I said, looked at neuroscience and how emotions and feelings and actions all interact in the moment and over time. And that's just moved on massively. So it sort of reconnected me with that theoretical base. There was a lot of really practical advice. And actually what you was just saying then, so we interviewed board members, and some of them told us about difficult situations their boards have been in and how they resolved it. And some of the ways in which they navigated through were really simple and basic, but you just might not think of them in the moment. So there was someone that was we interviewed, and his board had two people on his board had really fallen out and got into a standoff, we would say in the book, is one of the dynamics we talk about. And he said, I thought back to when I was at school, and there was this teacher that when two kids had fallen out, would make them go and clean up the games room shed together in the afternoon. It's a high-risk strategy because it's full of sticks and hard balls, but normally they would come out, speaking and in a better place. So he would, of two board members, really, he'd get them to do something together, ideally to travel somewhere together to do it and spend time. And often that can just help people develop mutual understanding, calm down enough to have a decent conversation, see each other's point of view, and get more collaborative. So, even just, sending two people to, wherever your latest investment is in, Connecticut or wherever together, two board members can make a massive difference. And it's so simple when you think about it, but extremely powerful. So I think it's influenced my practice with theoretical underpinning, but also being more open to very simple things that can be really powerful for people. It doesn't have to be, complicated or even especially deep. Sometimes practical ways forward really work well for people.
Yeah, I really like that. And particularly as coaches, I always think one of the things that unites us is we're always craving learning. And so you're always looking for the new innovative thing, the new model, the new piece of research and how you can apply that. But as you say, sometimes it is, the foundational basic things are the foundational basic things because they're simple and they work time and time again. And it's sort of not being precious about that.
Yeah, exactly that.
And the other thing that really interests me about your title of your book is that obviously you've got this deep psychological theme running through and art. And I love the idea of this sort of corporate, creative corporate hybrid is one of the phrases that I use sometimes. So tell us a bit more about how art played into the book.
Yes, so we wanted to create the sense that there aren't really any simple answers. There isn't a 10-step process to the perfect board or resolving a difficult dynamic. It's an art form, and maybe it's a craft, and like coaching. So it does have science, and there are things you can know and understand that can help you. But really, it's a practice that you're going to hopefully hone and develop over years. I do upholstery. So it's the same sort of, that sort of craft form where you can learn it for years and you're still learning something each time you do it. So I think it's that sort of sense of art and craft and that continued development and it being a creative process rather than a formulaic answer. And art in our book is also an acronym. So we encourage people that encounter a difficult dynamic. And, the book happens to be about boards, but most of what we cover applies to teams in all organisations and probably around your breakfast table this morning as well. It's just about how people relate together when they're trying to do something together as a group. And the art is if you're sensing a sort of tense or tricky situation, is to the A of art is awareness. So sort of stop and have a think. And the awareness that we really promote in the book is self-awareness. Because often when we're in a tricky relationship dynamic, we want to go, yes, it's being so annoying, and why do they keep doing that? But to really try and take a conscious look at your own contribution to the situation, to try and think about the dynamic and what might be happening and why. So to really practice that skill of awareness in the moment and over time. The R of the art is relationships. Then to focus on the relationship. I do think that I've pinched this quote, and I don't know who it's from, but all problems, all tricky problems are relationship problems, technical problems. We can solve those, right? I think most tricky problems turn out to be relationship problems, and so really that's where it's important to focus. So on boards, think about the quality of a particular relationship. What's difficult? Why is it strained? What's lacking? How can you build it? How can you strengthen it? How can you make it healthier? That's the sort of focal point if you want to get a really healthy functioning board. And then the T is tactics, because there are sort of tips and tricks and techniques that you can have in your kit bag and reach for when you get in a tight situation. And across all of those, so that's the art of is the thinking about awareness, relationship, and tactics, and really doing that from your own point of view rather than as a coach and as a consultant. I don't know if you have the same experience. We're often brought in where a commissioning client wants us to fix a problem with someone else, and
Yes, we both did the just at the same time, didn't we?
So it's really, encouraging people to raise awareness of their own role in a situation and what they might do to strengthen relationships.
Absolutely, starting with self.
Starting with self.
So much in there. I think the book sounds fantastic. So, you've given us one of the techniques from the book. What did you learn throughout the research, working with Routledge, working with a partner author, through the whole thing, what did you learn that surprised you?
I think that across all of those things and across my work and my life, there's a lot of complexity in the things we love to learn, as you say, that you can get into things. But when we did the research with board members, and when Joy and I tried to both contribute as much as we could towards a book, and then we were going through the process of getting it out into the world, most of the difficulty is how we get in our own way. So defensive reactions, psychological defenses that, they're things that serve us really well, or have in the past. But under pressure, they can go a bit feral. We might become a bit too assertive about our viewpoint or why something has to be a certain way. And that's particularly going to happen when we're under pressure. So there came a point about halfway through writing the book where I was like, oh no, it's just going to, the whole thing's going to collapse down into one sentence, about psychological defenses. It all seemed to come back to that. But I think it's quite a reassuring thought as well, that things do come back to a root and that we can understand things about that root and, sometimes ease them or work through them if we're prepared to take a look and do a bit of work. So, yeah, I think I became aware at all sorts of levels of my own defensive reactions. So it's quite funny. We'd be writing a chapter about a standoff and being this like, well, I can't be like this, having one ourselves. It's everywhere all the time, and that's okay. And part of working with other people is a bit of contact and a bit of friction, and you kind of need to be up for it, I think. And to sort of have your own ways of working through things that are trickier, because if you can get to a really brilliant place. So I think Joy and I never completely fell out during the process, but we did have moments of friction, and I think the book's all the better for it. Yeah. She has dyslexia and I have ADHD, so you wouldn't put that combination together for a pair of authors, I don't think. But in fact, I think it just, that difference made for a much better book in the end, and one that we're really proud of.
Yeah, it clearly works. So other than your own, what book recommendation do you have for us?
Ooh, yeah. Would you like a coaching book or
whatever springs to mind?
Can I give you two?
Yes, you can.
I always like an extra bite of the cherry. Have you noticed this about me, Helen?
I'm very happy. I read a lot of books, so this this podcast is not doing much for my to be read list.
I've really enjoyed the most recent one by Jonathan Mayles. He's a coach and a colleague I've worked with. I'm just trying to remember the title properly. The Work Revolution. It's got loads of really interesting and useful stuff in there. And it's also a bit of a political manifesto about the world of work, which I really love. And then for a non-fiction, I'm reading Murakami, The City and Its Uncertain Walls at the moment, which is absolutely lovely.
His books. Great writer. And whoever does his translations is phenomenal.
Absolutely. Because you have I've no idea really, but I have the sense of it being written in his voice, despite the translation.
Well. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Fantastic. Great recommendations. Thank you very much. So, what advice would you give to coaches who are listening today and thinking, Helen has inspired me, I'm keen to go on my powwow and write my first book? What advice do you have for them?
I would say plunge in. Don't stop to think too hard, and you'll find your way as you go. Having a co-author really helped me. and I'm really grateful to Joy. For me, that was a vital part of the process. So really consider that and think about who might be a really good match for you.
Brilliant advice. Thank you. Thank you so much, Helen. Let's close by, if you could tell listeners where they can find you, your services and your books online.
Oh, yeah. Well, the book is in all good retailers. I use World of Books. I haven't used Amazon for 10 years, and I like the business model of World of Books. So that's where I would go to it, but all retailers. I'm at HCubed, which is, and on LinkedIn as well, but HCubed, hcubed.co.uk. You can find me there or on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Helen, thank you so much for your time. That was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's interview with Helen as much as I did. We have a 5-week month, and so I'll be back on New Year's Eve, where I'll be bringing you my top tips to make your non-fiction book unputdownable. I'll see you for the next chapter of Coach Right. Thank you for joining me today. You can get the show notes and your free guide to publishing options at coachright.co.uk. Remember to subscribe and leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. Your words can make a difference. A review can too. If you'd like to connect, find me on LinkedIn, ONeill Helen, that's ONeill, ONeill, or on Instagram at Helen ONeill Coaching. I'll see you for the next chapter of Coach Right.